we're going to get started now. It's really great to see you here on the last of these meetings for the semester. I know, right? There'll be time for tears later. I'm still DJ. I still use he, him pronouns. And this is still Allison.
I'm still Allison. I still use she, her pronouns. Just to give you a little precursor before we acknowledge the land that we're on, today is sort of meant to wrap everything up and to sort of support you in all the things that you need to be successful. And so we've done lots of individual things, but today we're going to talk these big things about like time, goals, balance, mentorship, the things that you need for the next couple of years to get tenure.
But first, for millennia, the Kumeyaay people have been a part of this land. This land has nourished, healed, protected, and embraced them for many generations in a relationship of balance and harmony. As members of the San Diego State community, we acknowledge this legacy.
All right, so as part of our program, if I can get this to...
Oh, is it off?
Maybe. No, it's on. It's just not working. I'll do old school.
Sorry about that.
Why not?
Hang on.
There we go. So we talked a little bit last time about teaching effectiveness in your file. And so we just wanted to sort of demystify the RTP process. This is the thing that causes great stress. Being a psychologist, anything like that should cause a little bit of stress, and sometimes that stress is just acknowledging like the importance of it, right? I try to reframe this for my daughter when she's nervous about like a musical performance. She was in Seussical the musical. And she was like, "Mommy, I'm scared." I said, "Well, scared or are you nervous? Like nervous is a little bit different from scared." She goes, "No, I'm nervous." I said, "You know what that is? That's your body telling you, you think this is really important and you value and you want to do well in this." I think all of us are here to get tenure. All of us want to do well. And some of our structures in place support that, and we feel very supported in that process. And some of us, to be honest, are not going to have as much support, or we're just going to run a little bit higher on anxiety, right? So we wanted to sort of walk you through. We talked about teaching, but we'll bring it back up. We want to walk through teaching effectiveness is file 1, professional growth is file 2, and service is file 3. We wanted to kind of walk you through these. You will have multiple opportunities through faculty advancement to have extra time with Joanna Brooks on what you need for these files. Hopefully you have mentorship within your department, your chairs, or your school directors, faculty who are more senior to you, maybe faculty who have just gone through this process. So as we talked about last time, file 1 is teaching. We're at a CSU, teaching is valued here. You have a 2-page narrative, and we're talking single-spaced. I've seen some crazy little margins on these things. Hopefully you don't get too much lower than like 11 font, because some of us just can't read smaller than that. But within that narrative and your file, right, you also have the opportunity to showcase 5 things. You do a lot more than that, but you show your top 5 things as like a demonstration of your effectiveness. You also have a course list which tells what classes you've taught, what modality, how big they are, right? Your course ratings or evaluations. And you get to submit evidence of those courses. So a syllabus, major and minor assessments, your student opinion survey results, lots of these things. If you're in a field where research and thesis projects are done, you also can turn in a list of student mentored thesis projects. So some of us will have doctoral dissertations, theses that we're, providing supervision for, but also where you're second or third reader on, anything like that. We sort of wanted to break this down to tell you that your 5 significant items, they're usually representing teaching innovation. So if you're creating a new course, that's kind of an obvious, but a lot of us are coming in and the course already existed prior to us coming here. Maybe we didn't do too much to it. We didn't really innovate it in some way, but it could be, right, an innovation that you bring in. You're bringing technology in. You're doing something pedagogically new or different in. Maybe you are standing looking square dead in the eyes of AI and you're embracing that challenge and you're like, this didn't have AI, and now here's the teaching innovation where I introduced and brought AI into the classroom. It can also look like mentorship of students. So DJ and I were talking about these different files, and I think we're a nice little combination. He's coming from theater over in professional studies and fine arts. I'm in psychology in the College of Sciences. He's like, you put students as a significant item? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, how does that work? I said, well, I mentored this student on their thesis project. So I uploaded, right, an early draft of a thesis project with all of the all of the edits and all of my comments, and that's evidence of me mentoring that student, right? Sometimes it's the student's publication, and I'm like, well, that didn't start that way. This is what I've done with this student. Anyone doing community-based participatory action research or academic engagement inside the community, that might be there, right? We're going out into the community, and that's where you're teaching your students. It can also look like teaching training. So this is why we've created this course for you, so that when you're done with this and you turn in the last thing we're asking you to do and an evaluation, we've got a badge set up for you on Credly. It's really pretty. I'll show it to you. These things, right? Getting your AI micro-credential or any other kind of teaching training, those are all evidence of you being effective as a teacher. DJ, did you want to add anything to that?
I don't want to add
Okay.
anything to that. I was going to go to slide 2.
Do it.
Wait, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Sure.
Okay. When you submit those things, do you have to like explain them, or do you just submit it and then move on?
So each of the categories, teaching, professional growth, and service, is like a big bucket. And you're asked to put, each bucket is structured similarly with 5 significant items and then a list of all the other items. So you don't have to provide a paragraph length explanation of every single conference presentation, for example. But for each of the 5 significant items, you are given an opportunity to discuss it at about the length of a chunky paragraph. My item 1 might take up most of a page, but then the rest of my items will be smaller. So you will have an opportunity in each of the categories to talk about your significant items.
Okay.
So whether we go up year 3, 4 through 6, as far as the student evaluations, do we have to put all of our classes in, or what if we have one amazing class?
No, you include all of your evaluations and course materials for the
true.
6 most recent active semesters. College of Ed, they include things like summer because they recognize that a lot of College of Ed classes are happening in the summer, whereas for pretty much every other college, that's not required. But you're going to put them all in there, but you can contextualize them.
Student feedback surveys, as we talked about substantially at the last meeting, are not great data, and we're always talking to faculty members as well as evaluators about how to look at and read this. If there were something that went really right, I might surface some of the student feedback in my teaching narrative, or in how did students respond to one of my teaching innovations? Well, the survey responses say this. Try not to over-signify it, because if I have another class where things didn't go so well, I don't want people reading this to already over-signify my student surveys. But we do have to include all that data and then talk about it.
And we are here, just as an aside, to help you contextualize that. So come see us when you get those data, and we can help you frame it, phrase it, talk about it. Part of the teaching effectiveness is demonstrating responsivity, or what we talked about last time, reflexivity to your students.
Right.
So anyone can have a bad comment, we overlook those. Let's just say you get housed. No one in your class liked you, everyone just did not like you. Well, then you come to us and we work through that, and then we show in the next semester that you were responsive and that you're getting better in terms of their opinions of you. But that's also where a peer evaluation can really sort of neutralize that, because as peers, we can say, hey, I am also an educator, I am also a scientist, and I know teaching, and there's great teaching going on there. And also what I saw in the classroom was a bunch of students, like, I don't know, playing Scrabble. Like, you know,
Right.
like, so we can contextualize that for you.
Sure. Speaking of contextualizing, as Allison said, San Diego State is part of the CSU system. All the CSUs were designed to be teaching forward. San Diego State is distinct, and it's just worth noting that professional growth here is file 2, but anecdotally, informally, most reviewers open file 2 first. That's just the reality at San Diego State. as I mentioned at new faculty orientation, the good side of that is most of the faculty you will run into are not only doing some pretty impressive things in their professional careers, they're also killing it in the classroom. They care about teaching. Where I got my 2 graduate degrees, that wasn't always the case. In fact, that wasn't encouraged. I might even say that was discouraged. So that's the plus side of being at a place where professional growth and teaching are both valued and encouraged. The downside is File 2 is super important, as well as File 1. Here again, you're asked to compile 5 significant items, and evidence for professional growth is really important here at San Diego State. You will be teaching. You will be assigned to teach classes. That's unavoidable. If you find yourself only teaching and letting your professional growth slide, thinking, hey, that's File 1, that will be a problem that when it comes to RTP. So part of what we'll be talking about over the next few minutes is striking that balance, because although it's File 2, let's also note, you've got 50% more pages to talk about your activity here. That's a data point. You've got more page count to discuss your professional growth than you do for teaching, because it's valued and they want you to expand. There are strong expectations for professional growth here at San Diego State. And when you find the slide deck, you can hear a little bit. This is lifted from the RTP file, so you can get a sense of what's expected in terms of evidence of professional growth. One thing I do want to note, in your professional growth narrative, it is always a good idea to link what you're doing to your department or school's RTP criteria. Every department or school has a document that says, here's what all our faculty need to do to progress toward tenure. If you're in a really eclectic department or school, there might be several different avenues for progressing towards tenure. In the theater program, just to pick one, there's people who teach acting, there's people who direct professionally, there's lighting designers, there's people like me with PhDs. All those people progress towards tenure in radically different ways. So be sure to cite your criteria. There are hilarious / scary stories that circulate on campus about like people from ceramics. Someone from ceramics had a beautiful ceramic sculpture that was on display at the Museum of Modern Art in New York City, and didn't get tenure the first time up because people were like, where are your publications? So especially if you're in a branch of professional activity that doesn't crank out peer-reviewed journal articles, be sure to cite your criteria. Let's talk a little bit about service.
Service. You get 1 page. So again, if we're talking priorities.
What does that tell you?
You cannot escape. You cannot escape without doing service. Like, even if you run from it. So when I was hired in 2008, we were told, say no to everything. And I'm like, no, don't. Why are you saying that? Because there's this big cohort of folks in the university who are like, nope. And I'm like, what do you do? And they're like, I do my work. And I'm like, but no. So I have come to encourage people to serve thoughtfully and intentionally. And what I mean by that is there's something that's important to you, and it can range and it can look different, right? So if undergraduate education is the thing, and you have grad and undergrad, but undergraduate is it, then maybe you go on your department's curriculum committee, and that's where you're really doing the changes. So that when someone asks you, hey, can you serve on grad committee? And you're like, so the thing is no, because I'm really, really focused here on the undergrad curriculum. If you're serving thoughtfully, if you're serving intentionally, you're still doing service, but then you can do both. You can say no, and you need to learn to say no. Hopefully your department chairs or your school directors are protecting you as junior faculty from the burden that is service. But sometimes that protection lasts a semester. Sometimes it lasts a year. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes people are asking you to be on committees or chairing committees as a second-year professor. And sometimes it can be really hard to say no, because unlike the corporate world, our department chairs and school directors aren't really our bosses in that sense. But as a junior faculty member, when my department chair said, hey, Allison, can you be on? It was like, well, yes. What do you mean no? I can say that word to them? No, there's no way, right? Also, there's lots of evidence that women get taxed with service. People of color get taxed with service, right? So where do we intersect? Women of color are slammed with service on this department. And so if you're spending all of your time doing service, you have very little to do with teaching and with research. And since we have to show up and teach our classes, what is falling? Like the research is the thing that's falling. So with service, you will do it. You're probably already doing it. Anyone who uses peer-reviewed journal articles as part of the currency of their field, you are reviewing these articles. You're an ad hoc reviewer. I'm seeing furious nods, right? Like, yes, you're doing the service already for your community, for your field. Some of us, and this is what I put in here, that like it looks different, but you can serve the department, you can serve the college, you can serve the university, you could serve at different levels, different people. So you can do service to students, you can do service to other faculty, to administrators. You can do all kinds of service. Don't let it take over everything that you do. And so when someone asks you, you can say, you know what, let me think about that and I'll get back to you. And then ask somebody else if that's a good idea. Because sometimes it's like, you know what, that's going to open doors for you. And then other times it's like, no, don't say no. I'll go to them and tell them no for you.
Some department chairs and school directors are very careful about assigning service or asking service of junior faculty. They'll keep a service inventory for each faculty member, and there will be full professors who are asked to do a lot. But junior faculty should not be asked to do a lot and should not be asked to do things like chair committees or run graduate programs. Your chairs and directors may not know what you're doing for the field. So if you have a leadership role in a service organization, like your conference planner, so for a subgroup for a major organization in your field, that's valuable service. But it might not be on your chair or director's inventories, but you can say, oh, wow, we've got a conference coming up in 4 months, and it's crunch time for conference planning. So have that conversation, and a thoughtful chair will see that you're already serviced up. This is one of the areas where you aren't really expected to have a laundry list of items beyond your 5 significant items. I don't know anyone who has had a difficult path to tenure because their service items were considered weak.
No.
I've
never seen a file get stuck on service ever. Ever.
Right.
Never.
So,
at any level.
as Allison began, don't say no to service. You should have 5 significant items. You should have 5 service items, but significant is not necessarily demanding, not for an untenured junior faculty member.
And it's fine to say, let me think about that, and to ask, what's the commitment like? So there are certain committees that you meet once a month for the 4 months that you're in for fall and the 4 months that you're in for spring, and maybe there's an hour of work being done. Okay. And then there's ones that are meeting every 2 weeks for 2.5 hours. No, don't be on that one,
And you don't
right?
want to
Don't be on
chairing
that
that,
one. Or the
right.
one where it's like, well, we're going to meet once and then you've got a lot of work to do to go fix this problem. It's like, no, don't do that. That will come.
Right.
That will come. And those of us who are full, we're doing a lot of service so that you don't have to. And then when you get tenure, welcome to it. My second year out after tenure, I joined Senate. That's service. That's a lot of service, right? That's when you step it up.
Great.
So there's tons of, I saw Eduardo's
great.
first.
Is there a ranking order between whether service is done at the school, college, or university?
So that is going to be in your policy file.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, I haven't seen very many policy files where they put like this is what you need in service. I've seen that ranking for professional development, but they kind of list it this way: as you can serve the university, you can serve your community outside of the university, but it really should be academically linked. So if you donate your time,
Right.
if you volunteer for your church, if you are part of Big Brothers Big Sisters, all of that is great. But unless you can sort of tie that into, this is how I'm building community and getting entree, this is how I'm going to get my research, it's like, that really shouldn't go in there. I'm on my kid's PTA. No one cares.
Right.
Right? Nor
Right.
should they for this process. That's not a thing. But if I'm trying to study PTAs as they relate to student outcomes, then yes, put it on there. Then I saw Taylor, I saw Luca.
I want to respond to
Okay.
that before we go to to Taylor's hand. I feel, as a former school director, that department school level service, college level service, and university level service require different levels of advancement, because a junior faculty member is going to know what's going on in the school because of faculty meetings, because of seeing people in the hallway. I didn't really even understand the structure of the college, let alone the university. So I think there's a certain amount, if I'm a mindful chair or director, I'm not going to recommend a university level service appointment to a new faculty member who maybe doesn't understand the full structure of the university. And yeah, those tend to be a bit more demanding and higher stakes. So again, I don't think most departments and schools that I know have a sense of ranking. Like these, in professional growth, there might be, these are the journals that we consider most seriously, and here's a second tier of journals for public. I don't think most units have rankings of service activity like that, but I just think in terms of getting to know the university, it makes sense to kind of work your way up. As an associate, yeah, you should be doing college level service. You might consider moving into university level service. As a full professor, you should be taking on big leadership roles within the unit and thinking about university senate and thinking about the university RTP panel. But that also comes with time and knowledge. Thanks for holding.
I was just going to ask, do you guys help discern whether an activity is service or teaching? So for instance, because I have activities that I've done that I've heard both.
Yeah.
Oh, that will be great in your RTP as teaching.
Yeah. Allison added this word after every one of the listings of 5 significant items. They really ought to be distinct in exactly the way you're asking. How would you disambiguate between service and teaching, for example?
With some, especially in certain fields, it's really tricky and the line is blurry. And so,
Like a real example.
I'm sorry?
I give an example.
Go ahead.
So I do secondary trauma training, and I've done 4 trainings with the California Judges Association. So that's like community-based training with judges across the state that people have said is teaching.
So my gut is saying that that's service. If you had, this is where it's tricky, if your research was on trauma training with judges, then creating that training would be teaching if you created that training. If you're rolling it out and just doing the training, I think of that as more service. But huge asterisk, this is where, while you're going through these things, you should seek as much input as possible. Talk to your chair, ask them. Talk to the current RTP committee, the 3 to 6 whoever is on your RTP committee for your school or department. Ask them. Ask folks who have just gone up. Because if everyone is like, yeah, that's service, yep, that's service, yep, that's service, then you're like, okay, consensus, it's service, right? But you want to ask the people who will be reading your stuff. And until you put the file into Interfolio and it's locked, you can talk to everybody on campus about your file, and I strongly encourage you to solicit as much feedback as possible. When I went up both times, ours, psychology is kind of a bigger department, so we have 6 people on our RTP committee for the department. 4 of the 6, I had their eyes on it. I had my chair's eyes on it. I had 3 of our 8 on the college committee and 2 of my associate deans. Like, I asked everybody for their opinions because I was like, I don't want it to be a surprise. And you'll get different opinions, but it's like, no, these are your strong things. Oh, I've got this. This is how I'd phrase that. You're good. And in that process, you'll get, why are you going up right now? Like, is that, like if you're going up for full, because there's no time limit on that. But if you're trying to go up early or something, then people might kind of question. And if you get enough of the looks like, is someone telling you to do this? Why are you going up? Then maybe you should ask yourself, like, maybe I shouldn't go up because everyone just looked at me like I'm an alien with 3 heads, right? When I made that suggestion. So get all the feedback and get all the eyes and then take what they're saying because they can usually make them stronger cases for you.
So we want to share a little bit of the.
That's the quick question.
Okay, I'm just looking at
Luca.
the clock a little bit, but go ahead. We'll take a couple quick questions and then move. We have a few more things to say.
Non-university surveys, for example, like I don't know, serving on an advisory committee.
Yep, absolutely it counts.
Yeah,
That still counts.
Yep.
Okay.
yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. Did you have a question too?
It's continue.
All right. So we wanted to share some of our favorite highlights from the National Center for Faculty Development and Diversity's curriculum, which is also part of the Canvas module for this course. And one of the expressions that they use is avoiding the teaching trap. Now, that may seem like a strange headline coming from the co-directors of the Center for Teaching and Learning.
Out of Cal State.
Yeah, right. But this conversation today is about balance. So one of the phrases that I really love from all the NCFDD curriculum is avoid overfunctioning on teaching to the detriment of your functioning on professional growth activity. Because it's easy to do. There's going to be all those students. The next class is coming up. It's definitely going to happen. And being underprepared feels awful. And sometimes, Allison could explain the psychology behind the example I'm about to share better than I could. But sometimes the work that I want to do seems so daunting, and the class that I want to prepare seems really doable. I could teach a magnificent class and feel great about myself tomorrow. There's no way I can finish this article tomorrow, so maybe I'll just not work on that at all and work a ton on this. So trying to find ways of striking a balance is part of the goal here. Aligning your time with your RTP evaluation criteria is wisdom. It might not feel great because tomorrow you could teach that really great class, but 4 years from now, you want to feel even better about turning in your RTP materials when you go up for tenure. So, to that end, we want to talk a little bit about if you find yourself in the so-called teaching trap, or if you want to avoid it altogether. Ultimately, the best way is to really be careful about how you manage your time and developing a plan for your semester before the semester starts. It's November, and it's your first semester here. Don't worry right now. But one of the things you can do in addition to catching up some R&R over winter break is thinking about spring semester. And part of some of the deliverables for the Canvas module in this course have to do with things that you can do to help yourself plan for a balanced semester that has teaching and professional growth activities in the right ratio.
Now, there is an asterisk to that. For those of you who have shared that you are new to teaching, the teaching trap or the feeling like you're
Right.
over-preparing, you're not over-preparing if this is the first time you're teaching it.
Right,
so
right.
if you're like, I'm failing because that's all I'm doing is trying to catch up with my class, and every week I'm preparing and then I'm teaching and then I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing next week, and I haven't seen the light of day other than teaching. Oh my gosh, I'm
Right.
failing. No, the answer is not that. What the teaching trap is I've taught this class 3 times and I'm still preparing as if it's the first time I'm teaching it. You don't need to do that. Now, sometimes you teach something and something goes not quite right and you need to adjust or, whatever.
Right.
That's fine. But you shouldn't be spending all of your time, all of the time, once you've gotten into the rhythm of that. I say that, and some of you will have a new prep this fall. Some of you will have another new prep in the spring. And so find some grace with yourself so that you're not like, oh, this is all I'm doing. Because if that's the first year and then in the second year you repeat those courses, it's going to be easier and it's going to take less time the second time around. So that's a big asterisk on that.
Right. Overperforming, over-preparing are part of that trap. But this doesn't mean don't prepare.
Yeah.
Preparing to teach is an essential part of taking teaching seriously. Do you want to say a little bit about the time audit?
Yeah, so we linked the time audit to you. On the first page, I think it's a 2-page audit. On the first page, it asks for your actual time spent. Research, service, teaching. Some of us put things like sleep or childcare, whatever it is that you have to do, right? But the first page was actual time spent. And so we wanted you to reflect on when you sat that out across an average week, was there any surprises to you? Were you like, what? Like, that took how much time? Or like, oh my gosh, I didn't spend any time on this thing. So we would really like you to think about that and discuss that with, 2 or 3. It doesn't have to be the whole table because we want people to have time to share. But think about what were the surprises if you found any. Some of us are really good with time management. We're on it. We can align it to our goals. But for others, it might be surprising what we're doing with our time. So we did want to take a couple of minutes to discuss that. We also want to keep in mind that when you are surprised about where you're spending too much or too little time, that there are some parts of the day where you're going to do something better. Just like our students. We've got students who cannot make it to an 8 a.m. class. They are sleeping. They will never wake up. Don't know why they signed up. Maybe it's the only class. But DJ, this is his schedule. He writes in the morning. He emails midday. He does the administrivia and the reading later. That's DJ's day. If I'm trying to read something for retention or do something meaningful, between the hours of like 12 and 2, it doesn't happen. If there's something really heavy text, I will fall asleep, like narcoleptic sleep. I can't do it. But before that time, after that time, that's fine. I can do it then, right? And so I can write at the beginning of the day, I can write at the end of the day, but there's the magic hole that happens in the middle of my day. So you want to kind of keep in mind when you're productive and when you can do these things, on top of the fact that some of us have other things outside. Like 8 o'clock, I'm dropping my kid off, right? 3 o'clock, I'm picking my kid up. Like these are things that I can't schedule anything at that time because that's just the reality of our lives. So when you're looking at that, think about it in terms of what's surprising. And then the next step, you don't have to discuss this, but the next step is to think ahead to that second page of where you should be prioritizing your time. What would an ideal schedule look like? Because whereas we can't go back now, we can think ahead to this plan that we're setting up for spring to be successful, where you can save this time for yourself. So we'll give y'all a couple of minutes to discuss like your time audits with one another, what you found. And some of you might be like, I didn't find anything surprising. Next. That's great.
Especially if you've discovered some things about your time management. The National Center for Faculty Development and Diversity recommends that you take what you've learned from your time audit and not just sort of keep it in the back of your mind, but literally put it on your calendar. Once you know when you are at your best for work on your professional development activity, put it on your calendar and keep faith with that as you would for a meeting with several other colleagues. I'm never late for meetings with my colleagues, and I'm often inclined to look at my calendar and see a block of writing time and think, that's fine, I can take a meeting then. That's fine, it's just me. And I'm undermining my own professional growth time when I do that. I have a colleague who I really like, and if I want to have coffee with that person, the conversation is often like, oh, that's great. What are you doing 6 weeks from now? Not because the person really doesn't like me, because that person is really research productive and holds her time. And I try to do that too. One of my favorite, slightly painful phrases from the NCFDD curriculum is, a goal without a plan is just a wish. Put what you learn from your time audit on your calendar. That's the planning part. We've also asked you in this module to think about your network of support people. Once upon a time, there was the idea that you should have an RTP mentor, somebody like a guru who is going to help you navigate the university and your path to tenure. And you might find one person who's particularly helpful, but putting all your eggs in one basket is not wise. So there's this map offers you an opportunity not to fill in every one of these things like it's some like you're planning for March Madness, but just to think about all the different people in your professional sphere who might help you network that professional sphere. Whether there are people who are going to help you within your field, moving towards publication, the people who will help you in the classroom, people who might help you with a particular service activity, people who might provide you with emotional support along the way. We're not expecting that they will be the same people. And you shouldn't expect that one person will be all things to you. You might have somebody who's really great about understanding the RTP process, but is not good at being a shoulder to cry on or providing any kind of emotional support on a tough day. I'm thinking of last Tuesday. So finding the different people who might satisfy various needs is the idea of a mentor map.
And that's pulled from this mentor map. This one is a lot bigger on NCFDD. Joanna in her office has kind of collated it into this way, and I like the way that it's looking because it more or less aligns with the RTP process. So you've got teaching, you've got professional growth, and then you've got service and leadership. And then this is just you as a human. Like, who do you need? DJ and I are happy to be anywhere on this map for all of you. I think the logical thing is in the teaching, but some of us are in the same field. So Jane and I had lunch yesterday. She's in psychology, I'm in psychology. So maybe I can help with some of those other things. But where you have intellectual community, peer cohort outside of SDSU, campus cohort, I mean, maybe there's a fourth category of like mom or sister or best friend, something like that. We need lots of different things from different people. And so we just want you thinking about that and reflecting on, is there something where you are glaringly empty? You're like, wow, I don't have anybody for that. Mm-hmm. Right? And that doesn't all have to be filled out. The funding one up there, if you're in a field that doesn't require funding or grants, but for those of us that are in that field where that is part, like that's what they're going to hold us to, I need to know who can write the grants and how they can help me because they are hard. Yeah. So this is what we're going to ask you to fill out for the homework, the activity for today. And you can download it and scribble on it, or you can just say funding 1, writing some standard feedback, here's my 2, whatever, however you want to approach it.
And to be very clear, we don't expect you to fill every one of these lines like it's a basketball bracket. But we do want you to think in these terms, in at least these 4 categories, as you imagine what's the best map of supports that you can really put names to.
And some of these people can help with the questions that you're asking. So if you've got someone with the service, leadership, institutional life, and the teaching, then Taylor could say, here's this thing that I did with training and judges. It feels like service, but someone told me teaching. Hey, service person, where do you think this goes? Hey, teaching mentor, where do you think this goes? And you can get their opinions. And then it's not like this big ask, it's just question, right?
So you'll find this in the Canvas module for this course, and giving some thought to this and putting some names in here, again, whether you print it out and scribble it in or fill it out in a digital format, this is part of your exit ticket for this module. Questions? Well, all right. Then part of what's left is for us to say thank you.
Mm-hmm. We are super excited about this program because it was the first time that we've run it. And I was sharing with DJ some of the reflections from last time. So a lot of you are doing really good things in your class and you're getting solid feedback from your students. And then I was like, DJ, they like us. They say we're helpful. This is great, right? And so for some of you who you're brand new to teaching, we're hoping we provided you with the resources that you need now and in the future. For those of you who have been teaching for a while or coming in as chairs, you have lots of experience. I think there's still an underlying part of our goals, our learning outcomes, if you will, for this program were to help with ideas about student engagement, right? Accessibility and accommodations, because those look different at different universities. AI literacy, because 10 years ago that wasn't a thing and now it's very much a thing. Reflective teaching, because that will help you in this process. And then of course, time balance and mentorship, because you don't want anyone struggling in those ways. But the other goal for us for this program was really to create community. We really, really, really value that you hopefully are on each other's mentor maps as sources of support for one another. So even if, first year faculty, maybe you're not helping with the RTP process per se, but lunch and commiseration, that's an important thing. Or, hey, I have this question. Do you have this question? Who's going to answer this question for us, right? So we're hoping that this has provided that for you, because some of our experiences were a little less than ideal, right? Some of us came in as new faculty members and we didn't talk to anyone for months on end. Yeah, I cried when one of my senior faculty members walked past me in the hall. Hi, Allison. I'm like, hi, Joe. I went into my office. I was like, Joe said hi to me. I haven't seen anybody in 2 months. Joe Price, one of the most pleasant men on the planet. He's so lovable. But I shouldn't have been left alone for 2 months. Like, that should never happen to new faculty. So we're hoping that by asking you to come, feeding you, right? It's always good to break bread with community. Like, this is what we're trying to do in this program. If I can show y'all one more thing. Right. So we're going to ask you to do the mentor map.
Right.
And then we've got an evaluation But this, if you can see it, this is our new Faculty Success Program badge on Credly. It is alive, awake, alert, enthusiastic, ready for you to earn it. And then that credential would just drop into your digital RTP file for file 1. Like, this is teaching. This is how you're creating teaching effectiveness. By the end of the program, you've shown us that you can do these things. Boop, you drop it in, you've got one thing.
Indeed,
So
part of the plan for this new Faculty Success Program is you've just earned a major significant item for your RTP file.
And maybe in 6 years, you won't need it anymore. There will be other things, but it'll still be something on your CV. It'll still be something that shows that you care about teaching, right?
Yeah.
So we thank you
So
sincerely for your
feel
time.
free to stick around and continue to eat and talk, but this is the end of the new Faculty Success Program meetings, and you can wrap up on Canvas and earn this fantastic badge.
Thank you.
Thank you.